Good morning. Thank you for joining the York County Economic Alliance today for our webinar on the York County COVID-19 Response Fund. Today's webinar is part of a series of virtual resources the YCEA is working to bring to our members and community to help share information as we all work through these challenging weeks. Please visit our website, preparedyork.com, for a schedule of additional webinars and the latest information and recommendations related to the COVID-19 coronavirus. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items. Attendee lines are on mute, but if you have a question for the presenter during the webinar, please submit it at any time through the Q&A or chat feature along the taskbar to be answered at the end. Lastly, if you experience issues hearing the webinar, try dialing in through one of the telephone lines on the registration confirmation that you had received. I would like to thank our presenters for today's webinar, Jane Conover, President and CEO of York County Community Foundation, and Ann Druff, President of United Way of York County. Jane recently celebrated her 10th anniversary at the Community Foundation, where she has served as Vice President of Community Investment and Senior Vice President and COO before being named President and CEO in 2015. Ann joined United Way of York County as president in 2018, following 25 years of serving as president of the York County Convention and Visitors Bureau. She also served previously as executive director for Main Street York. I'll now turn it over to Jane and Ann.
Good morning, Jason, and thank you so much to you and to the whole team at YCEA for keeping our community really well informed about the resources available to them and all of the changes that have been evolving as we've worked together for this to address this coronavirus. As you said, I'm the president of the York County Community Foundation. I've been in York for 22 years, working in human services and community development, previously at the YWCA. And today I'm really feeling grateful for lots of things. I'm really grateful that my family and I are healthy. I'm really grateful that the staff at the York County Community Foundation is healthy and continuing to be able to work every day since the pandemic began here. And I'm also really grateful to be with Ann Druck and to be here with my friend who, working together over the last few weeks, we've been able to create a fund that can help address the needs in our community. So I'm looking forward to talking with you about that today. You know, it was probably now 6 weeks or so ago, 7 weeks or so ago, that I started to realize the extent of the challenges we're going to be facing as our community. And we asked ourselves, well, how can we help as the Community Foundation? And we really turned to what we do best, what we do every day, which is to inspire charitable giving, to identify the greatest community needs, and to target our grant resources towards the highest and best use. So we knew that also, though, that we can be stronger together rather than working in our own silos. So we were grateful to be able to reach out to Ann Druck at the United Way and all our philanthropic partners at the private foundations in our community and say, how can we do more together? And after several conversations, agreed that by pooling our resources together, we had a better chance to have a greater impact on the priorities that our community is facing. So I'm really pleased at how to report back to you today about how we're doing, but I'm going to turn it over to Ann to share a little bit about her viewpoint from the United Way's involvement.
Thank you, Jane, and good morning, everyone. I've had the great honor of working on the United Way of York County team for almost 2 years now. And I say team because our efforts rely on the generosity of thousands of donors who want to make a difference in the lives of everyone who lives in our community. And as you all know, today, thanks to the global pandemic, those needs have grown exponentially. And I don't think we really yet have a handle on the ripples that will be created in our future. At the United Way of York County, we focus on improving the health, the education, and the financial stability of everyone who lives in our wonderful community of York County. Annually, the United Way provides funding to almost 500 nonprofit organizations doing great work in our community, including our 35 partner agencies. Our donors also fund the vital work of our partner agencies through the Community Fund, and grants from for community fund programs serve 1 and 4 people in York County. At both United Way and community foundations, our organizations rely on our community's generous donors, engaged volunteers, and stellar staff. Therefore, it really was a natural fit for us to serve as stewards of the COVID-19 recovery funds.
Yeah.
Back to you, Jane.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think that there's lots of good work and a lot already going on in the community that both your organization or our organization has been working on for years. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And I think our next part of the conversation is really to talk about the York County COVID-19 Response Fund. We started it around March 27th and really started it, as I mentioned, with pooling resources from the private foundations in the community. But you want to talk a little bit more about how we've grown since then. Anne.
Okay. Well, the York County folks, Jane, as you know, are well known for being generous, and our community has really responded to this crisis in a big way. On March 27th, we announced the York County COVID-19 Response Fund with an initial donation from the York County Community Foundation of $100,000. Within weeks, the fund has grown to almost, drum roll please, are you drumming, folks? $1 million. Now this amazing growth has been achieved through a mix of gifts from foundations, individuals, and corporations. It's our triple threat in York County to answer the growing needs from this pandemic. Additional major gifts have come from the W. Dale Brocker Foundation, the Arthur J. and Lee R. Gladfelter Foundation, Powder Mill Foundation, J. William Wareheim Foundation, Kinsley Foundation, Memorial Health Fund, Women's Giving Circle, Harley-Davidson Foundation, and Carol D. Wagman. We've also been inspired by many local businesses who came up with creative and unique ways to support the fund. For example, just a few, Revolt Style Studio, a boutique in downtown York, created a limited York sticker and gave the proceeds of those sales to the fund. Wired Designs, a jewelry maker in York, donated proceeds from the sale of a special bracelet to the fund. And Windridge Farm hosted a successful Cases for a Cause event. Adhesives Research in Glen Rock is actually matching their employees' donations to the fund, and adding to all of that corporate generosity are some creative and generous individuals. We just were made aware of, over the weekend, a group of RKL employees, friends and family who are runners. Now, as you know, we're not going to have a Triple Crown winner this year. A lot of races from the four-legged to the two-legged kind have been canceled. So what this group of runners are doing is they're pulling the dollars that they normally would have spent for their spring and summer race registrations. They're holding their own marathon this Saturday at a county park in York while respecting social distancing guidelines, and they're donating those race registrations to the fund. So what a great way to stay healthy and really help our community stay healthy at the same time. And this one, I think, surprised us. We have heard from many generous locals who are actually dedicating their federal stimulus payment as a donation to our community's COVID fund. We know that the needs will be growing over time, and we are asking you to give to the fund. To contribute to the York County COVID-19 Response Fund, please visit either YCCF.org or unitedway-york.org. And also, I'd like to thank the Economic Alliance for all the work that you're doing in our community. Your Prepared York site is amazing. All these webinars. I know, you know, as leading our community's business and economic future, you're playing a key role in making sure we thrive in the future. And I just want to thank you for making this webinar right before Give Local York. Your timing is fortuitous. So this Friday, please spread the word to all of the 50 folks and more that are on this call that during Give Local York on May 1st, your donation to the York County COVID-19 Response Fund will actually be matched dollar for dollar by York Traditions Bank up to $7,500. So we hope you all get out and join the fund this Friday, and check out our Give Local page at givelocalyork.org.
That's so exciting, Anne. It really is. And I really, what I see is this is really an example of the spirit of giving that York County has demonstrated for many years. And both of our organizations have been the beneficiaries of that. So we're so, so grateful to everyone. Raising the money is the first part of this project. The second part of the project is, where do we give the money to? And I think that's one of the appeals of having a combined York County COVID-19 response fund, that the donors have a chance to give money to trusted organizations so that they can best deploy those resources in the most effective way in the community. That doesn't mean that other nonprofits are not suffering right now and need your support. So if you are a regular giver to a charitable organization, please continue to do that, because at this time, with fundraisers cut and programming cut, that there's still a need across the community for support from you and your charitable giving. However, the way that we're working is a terrific combination of the skill sets of both of our organizations. We have expertise on our teams, in Lisa Levin on our team at the grant making team, and Natalie Williams in the United Ways team, who for years now have been developing extensive knowledge about the needs in the community, building trusting relationships with nonprofits across the community. And that combination has really helped us identify quickly who should we be talking to, and how do we bring people together to identify the most important needs. And smartly, they invited Jessica Mockabee, who is the Assistant Director of the York County Department of Human Services, to join that leadership team to identify where to deploy resources. And really, just like I said earlier, you can't make decisions in a vacuum. You need to have as much input as possible. So we formed several advisory committees to help identify really how we can fill gaps in public funding, how we can ensure that the dollars are going to organizations with the capacity to serve the most people. Early on, after looking at the landscape, Natalie and Lisa and Jessica decided and helped decide that the focus should be on meeting basic immediate needs. First and foremost, food on everyone's table. And so we created a food advisory committee that includes members who've been working for decades on trying to distribute food throughout York County. In fact, the Community Foundation worked with this food distribution network over the last 2 years to do a research project and identify what parts of our community are underserved in terms of having access to fresh foods in particular. And we learned that 55,000 people in York County are at risk of going hungry. And so we needed to try and address that, and have been working with them to address that over the last few years. So it was natural for us to call that group together, among others, and say, what funding are you getting from the state and federal government? Where are their gaps? And how are you needing to adapt to these COVID guidelines changes and the increased demand that you're experiencing? And so it's been a great couple of weeks. We've been able to come to some decisions that Anne's going to tell you about in a moment. But we've learned a lot along the way about not only the immediate challenges, but just the systemic challenges that our community faces. Anne, want to tell us more about what you've been hearing from nonprofits?
Yes, thanks a lot, Jane. One of the most important things in establishing the response fund was ensuring that we connect with representatives from local agencies, experts in health and human service sector, and representatives from the communities that the grants will actually serve. So the United Way is fortunate to have strong partner agencies, and several of them are participating on these advisory groups, Jane, that you've described, alongside of other nonprofit partners. So we thank our partner agencies always, and all the nonprofits who are participating in this challenging process with us. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone. You know, we're all adjusting. We're going from mediocre to marvelous on this virtual environment. Some are juggling children at home. So folks have really worked late nights and weekends, and I appreciate that. I know Jane does too, because their expertise, their experience, their passion provides a powerful lens through which we can understand and try to get a grasp on these increasing needs in our community. And I do have a couple examples for you to just ponder and consider. The Central Pennsylvania Food Bank provided these staggering statistics from the organizations that they partner with in York County. And nearly 900,000 pounds of food were distributed in March. And the need is surpassing that in April. Now, 900,000 pounds, right? They're 2,000 pounds in a ton. So that's, Jane, help me out, 450.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. York County residents served in March increased by 70% compared to last March, and more than 1,000 of those served were new. Initial reports from program partners are reporting month-over-month increases from March to April of this year. Some are reporting increases as high as 300%. So these numbers will grow as, you know, the economic fallout of the pandemic continues. So it's really just a blessing and an honor, and you know, really a blessing and an honor and a joy, I guess. I'm very grateful, like Jane said earlier, to help be a small part of answering this explosion in need. 8 nonprofit grant recipients of our phase 1 round of funding will serve 24,000 households in York County with 1.2 million pounds of food. Those 8 organizations are Catholic Harvest Food Pantry, the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, Community Reach Incorporated, Mason-Dixon Community Services, New Hope Ministries, Northeast Neighborhood Association, the YMCA of York and York County Southern Community Services, and the York County Food Bank. So you can see earlier on, we talked about the geographic disbursement of these grants was also in the minds of all those great individuals lending their expertise to the committee and the first phase of grants. But alongside the food, there's a lot of uncertainty, and you know that creates a lot of stress in our community, and that can really bring you down, especially when you don't have a job, you're struggling to make ends meet, and we don't know when this is going to end. There are emotional needs being met alongside of the food needs as well. One story that was shared with many of us was a family who had a brand new baby right after the husband was laid off. So what should be a joyous time in everyone's life turns out to be a very stressful and concerning time. This family had never had to seek any kind of assistance in their past. But they were so grateful that one of our nonprofit grantees stepped up and was able to help them with extra newborn diapers and formula. The new mom was just overwhelmed with joy. As you know, many supplies, and including baby supplies, are hard to find in stores right now. In addition to that, we've heard people receiving, accounts of people receiving their food boxes, which are completely free of charge, and they're there because they need food, but they want to pay it forward. And they wanted to ask if they could give a few donation of a couple dollars to pay it back to the organization that was giving that to them. And, you know, I know that these individuals, when they're back on their feet, they're going to give back to our community that helped them. Just getting chills right now. So stories like these, while they're heartbreaking, as well, they are heartwarming and give meaning to our work at the Community Foundation and the United Way. And they should also give a sense of pride for all of those who've generously donated to and will donate to the fund.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Anne. It is heartwarming. It does break your heart in some cases, but the way people have been stepping up through charitable giving, but also through other ways of supporting volunteering during this time, it's just really, again, a testament to the sense of community we have here in York County. I am privileged as well to be a part of this process. And what's really stands out to me, what we've been hearing, is that many of the people who are asking for help now have never needed to ask for help before. They're facing challenges financially that they never experienced before, and many of them had no safety net. Right, they were living and working and earning a paycheck and paying their bills, but there wasn't a lot of cushion there. So it's while food is an immediate need, and we want to make sure nobody in York County has to worry about where their next meal comes from, we anticipate that the next round of needs will be more like helping people stay in their own homes. So interestingly, there's been a moratorium on evictions in York County and in the state for a few months now, well, for a few weeks now. And we want to make sure that people continue to understand that they have to still pay their rent. And we're concerned that people who may be at risk of eviction may be having some chance and risk of being homeless in the future. So our Housing Advisory Committee has been looking at what are the options to try and launch an education campaign, a communication campaign, so that right now, before things get too bad, that people are taking action to manage their finances in a way so that they can be sustained and stable through this crisis. So we learned that in the last 4 weeks, 19,000 people have been applying for unemployment in the state of Pennsylvania. And many of them still have not received their first check. So there's this period of time where they're without income. And that's really, not only is it emotionally stressful, it's also really a challenge to figure out what bills you pay. So what our first focus will be through this housing component of this project is to launch a communication strategy. And we were partnering with the Community Progress Council, who has some housing counselors there already. They are going to be launching this campaign with support from the COVID-19 Response Fund. We will be announcing those grants, more grants around housing in the next week or so. So stay tuned. The way we're working this is we're working 1 month at a time. The first round of grants went out to those charitable food distribution network that Ann just mentioned. We'll send some out in the next week for support of housing and eviction prevention. And then we expect in another few weeks to send out some more grants as the needs evolve and then we better understand what's the next shoe to drop. Again, this is evolving, and the initial crisis, initial needs, we're right on it, and we're supporting those who are delivering those services. But it's going to be changing, and we're going to be learning more as we go. It's been a real challenge to keep up to with what federal and state funding is available. So we don't want to duplicate that kind of funding. We want to fill gaps. And one of the things we learned with the Food Network is that while they may have access to food, they needed access to refrigeration and freezer space. And they needed to set up pop-up delivery sites in hard-to-reach locations like Airville and Brogue. And so they needed some infrastructure as well to help support them meeting the need. And that we envision will be the same with the housing assistance that we want to support. What counseling is needed, what support's needed, and what eventually may be some rental assistance needed. So for right now, if someone is worried about their housing stability, they can go to www.yorkcpc.org and find out more about that. I know that Prepared York also has some resources on its website related to housing and community resources. And where else can people turn to get some help at this time if they need it?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. And just to clarify, CPC is Community Progress Council. Most people on the call probably know that, but just in case you don't, that's Community Progress Council. So another resource for individuals in our community that, quite frankly, Jane, I think I undervalued until this crisis hit us is 211. 211 is our community's health and human services helpline. 211 is a powerful resource to be shared with individuals, some people you may work with, some people you know, who may need additional resources for childcare, food, housing, and other needs at this challenging time. Anyone can dial 211 or text your zip code to pound 898-211 to talk with a resource specialist for free. And you could also access their information. I'm pretty sure I was on Prepared York last night. There was information there. Jane, there's information on your website and certainly the United Way's website as well. And Jane, that was the word I was looking for, privileged. I couldn't get that one out. It is a privilege and an honor to work with you to help our community, Jane. And you know that saying, you're like the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that could be a blessing or a curse.
Yes, right.
You're a blessing. I did have there was one data point you shared I wanted to clarify. You said in the past 4 weeks, over 19,000 people applied for unemployment benefits, and many are still waiting to be approved. I know one of my friends is waiting for those funds. Is that stat Pennsylvania or York County, Jane?
Just York County.
Yeah, that's just incredible. So, you know,
I don't think we've really even fully kind of absorbed what the economic impact of the business closures, layoffs, furloughs is having on our community. And that's why I really like the strategic approach to this fund that we're using, because it would have been easy to say we're going to just write a bunch of checks the first week to people that are doing good work, but we really trying to make sure this money lasts as long as we need it to. Yeah. And grows over time to meet the needs. So yeah, we're hearing more every day of people facing challenges, and we want to make sure we can, and especially people who are unfamiliar with how to access help, and or embarrassed frankly, to ask for help. And we really are urging people to move past that and to start early in finding out what's available to help them through this crisis. One thing I want to mention is that the York County Bar Association just announced a Landlord-Tenant Webinar they're having on this Thursday, April 30th at noon. You can find out more information on the Prepared York website under the seminars and webinars that they have posted there. That's really important that, again, we have engaged the Landlord Association in our conversations around this, how to deal with the crisis, so that we don't want the business community, the landlords, to also be challenged during this time. And I really appreciate the work that they're doing, and they're willing to come to the table and say, how can we avoid having to evict people or to have economic expenses that they can't handle and the families they're serving can't handle. So staying on top of that. So I'm very, very grateful for lots of things. I would be remiss if I didn't also express my gratitude for those who are going to work every day and providing such important services to us all. The healthcare workers, the grocery store workers, the sanitation workers, and in my case, a lot of delivery drivers they're driving different types of trucks for home delivery. So I'm so grateful that the mail delivery, everyone that we kind of take for granted in some ways every day, we're really relying on them now, and can't underestimate the value that they contribute to our everyday life. There are also so many nonprofit employees around the county who are working long hours, stepping up to meet the increased demand. And we're very grateful for the nonprofit sector in this community, who's really strong, collaborative, and adaptive and resilient. So again, a shout out to all of them. Again, the partners that we're working with on this fund around the philanthropic community have been very generous and very engaged. And I look forward to continuing our partnerships well beyond this time to continue to strengthen our community. And lastly, I'll just thank, and I'm going to turn it then over to Ann to thank the donors to this fund. There's 200 individuals who've given to this fund, 20 foundations and corporations, and we appreciate everyone who's established matching programs at their places of employment. So people getting very creative. So please continue to support them. Please continue to reach out to us if you have any questions, and go to our websites for more information about how to apply for funds and how to give to the funds. And what is your last thoughts?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jane. I think we all have a renewed appreciation and understanding and gratefulness for our first responders, our childcare workers, our teachers, our healthcare workers, our grocery store and pantry employees, and all those in our community that do such amazing, stellar work, helping those in need and making our community a better place for everyone. So it is an unfortunate situation that 19,000, as you shared, filed for unemployment benefits, and many of those are isolated in their homes. They're practicing good social distancing, which is great. It may be a time for some of those folks to consider, and others volunteering. Although many nonprofit organizations have paused their volunteer opportunities due to the recommendations from the CDC on social distancing, you can still help support urgent community needs created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Feel free to visit the United Way's COVID-19 resource page at unitedway-york.org, which is updated regularly with volunteer opportunities for those that are healthy and able to volunteer. If you know of a volunteer opportunity that should be added, you can reach out to our volunteer engagement coordinator, Bryce Kruger, at Kruger, K-R-U-G-E-R-B, at unitedway-york.org. So we welcome anyone who's in a position and able to volunteer or even give blood at this time. I looked on the Red Cross website, and they have locations in the local community where you can donate in that way to help out others and give yourself a sense of that helpfulness to the community.
So we'll welcome any questions. Jason, do we have some questions?
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Jane. Fantastic presentation. Just a quick reminder to any attendees that are on the line that if you have any questions, there is a Q&A and a chat feature on the Zoom toolbar that you can submit to have your questions answered by Anne and Jane. Also, just as another reminder, the webinar today is being recorded, and we will post a copy of this online afterwards that you can view and share with others that maybe didn't have a chance to join us today to hear this. I don't have any questions that have come in just through the Q&A or chat feature, but I did have a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. Again, phenomenal job with your presentation, because I was going down the list of the questions, many of them you actually answered already as we were going through. But I did have a couple here that, can you talk, first, can you recap the most recent round of grants that were given, the total number and the amount that were made to nonprofits in our community?
Go ahead, Anne.
Okay, I have the list of the organizations, 8 nonprofit grant recipients: Catholic Harvest Food Pantry, Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, Community Reach Incorporated, Mason-Dixon Community Services, New Hope Ministries, Northeast Neighborhood Association, YMCA of York and York County Southern Community Services, and the York County Food Bank. And I believe the total, Jane, was 186,000?
Yep, just about a little over 186,000.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really like about that group of recipients is that there are large and small food delivery groups. So we have the York Central Penn Food Bank, which does serve the entire county, the York County Food Bank, which serves many, many people. But we also have folks down in Red Line at Community Reach who are providing food and services to people in that region. And so it's in Hanover, there's a location in Hanover with New Hope Ministries. So we're trying to reach, again, the broad cross-section of the community, because this pandemic really has hit every section of our community. So. Another question, Jason?
Sure, perfect. On that same line there, I did have a question that came through. The current funding program is set up to help provide some financial relief or resources to nonprofit organizations. What types of recommendations do you have to individuals that are experiencing hardships or need to find places where these resources are going to help them get through some challenging times?
Mm-hmm. And would that be 211?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking of, Jane. You know, we did, both organizations did quite a bit of research through our network of community foundation organizations in the country and United Way organizations in the country. And the majority of them are providing funding to organizations. So I think we felt that in order to expedite the dollars getting out to individuals, that we could do that most efficiently and most effectively if we made those dollars available to high capacity organizations that are already doing this good work in our community to help them meet the demand. So individuals could go to any of those 8 organizations, or as Jane said, 211 is certainly a resource for a multitude and a variety of health and human services need in the community.
Fantastic. And from the nonprofit side, are there still applications being taken, and what do you anticipate future? I apologize, my dog is chiming in with a question too as well. What do you anticipate some of the future phases and expansion of nonprofits that will be accepted into the future phases?
That's a good question. At this point, what I would refer people to would be the York County Community Foundation website, COVID, and then there's an FAQ sheet that can talk about the grant process. We are accepting phone calls as well from people who have an inquiry on whether their organization may be providing a service that would meet the criteria. And we also are keeping that up to date. So we are right now, as I said, focused on food issues and housing issues. But the whole nonprofit sector is going to be challenged over the next few months for sure, if not longer, year and a half. So we need, as a community, need to come together and evaluate how we can best provide support. The York County Community Foundation has over 150 nonprofits who have endowments with us. And so normally those grant checks go out every single year, and they usually go out in September. We decided to accelerate the distribution of those grants, so they went out this month. We did the same thing with another series of grants that were expected to go out in December. So we're really cognizant of how important the nonprofit sector is to helping continue to serve our community, and we'll be staying on top of our relationships and learning more about how we can best do that. So staying in touch, we'll keep things updated on our website is probably the easiest answer, and if they want to know more, they can make a phone call to the Community Foundation. Our website is www.yccf.org. Anne, you want to add to that?
Well, were there any more questions, Jason?
There was a question about how to volunteer, and I know that you hit on that a little bit, but can you extrapolate a little bit more on nonprofits that may have opportunities and how they can best get those out to promote so that they can utilize some volunteer resources?
Yeah, nonprofits can reach out to the United Way for any immediate volunteer needs, and that's unitedway-york.org. And then also, just to let the community know, our team at the United Way has moved our Day of Caring to September 4th, Friday, September 4th. So that's more of a future opportunity, but at this point in time, any nonprofit can reach out to the United Way with a need for volunteers.
Perfect. We did just have a question come in that says that you have discussed food and housing as critical to address. What about vulnerable populations, particularly the elderly? How will you be proceeding along those lines?
Well, that's a really good question, and there are a number of people who are considered vulnerable populations that are getting access to the food distribution programs that we've supported. Some of those food distributors are having boxes where people can come and pick them up, but some of them are delivering boxes to people who are homebound. And so at this point, that's how I would answer that question. I will mention that the Memorial Health Fund, which is a fund at the York County Community Foundation, will be accepting grant applications. We're launching that program next week, so stay tuned. on availability of grant dollars through that fund as well. And we just also distributed a few grants to other nonprofits who applied earlier this year. So I'll just say that Embracing Aging is one of the programs of the Community Foundation, and that some of the grants that just went out were to provide support to programs that are supporting our older adult population. And so stay tuned at the Community Foundation to see. At this point, our expectation is that when we are awarding grants for people to help with help with food and housing, that it will also reach the vulnerable populations. One thing I'll add is that also includes people whose English is not their first language. And so we have had many conversations with people providing services to the Latino population in particular, and are making sure that the materials that we're producing are both in English and in Spanish.
Excellent, thank you. That was a great point, and fantastic to hit on the English as a second language and multiple access points to the information. I only have one other question here that came in beforehand. So this is a last call to our attendees that if you do have some questions, please submit those here. But the last question that we had here was, can you touch a little bit more on how somebody can donate to the fund? How do they do that? And then actually, I'm going to ask you to expand on that and touch base again on the Give Local York event that's coming up, and the matching that you had mentioned earlier, just so that if anybody is looking to donate, they can maximize their donation this Friday.
Okay, so that's a great question. Thank you to whomever asked that. And individuals can go to the Community Foundation's website, which is YCCF.org, or the United Way website, which is unitedway-york.org. Individuals can mail in checks to the United Way. Jane, can they mail in checks to you as well?
Yes, they can.
So those are the various ways that individuals can give and corporations can give as well. And as you shared, Jason, Give Local York is coming up this Friday. So we welcome everyone to support all the good works of the nonprofits and the charities that will be participating in that event. Give Local York. We are one of the organizations that can be recipients of funding, the COVID-19 fund. And let me just say, because I'm not sure if we touched on this, we talked about this in the prep with Jane and Sarah, but I don't know if it was been mentioned, and that is that 100% of the donations that come into our COVID-19 recovery response fund will go out to our community. So just wanted to let everyone know that. And in closing, because I know we're coming up on the time here, and this is the Economic Alliance, this is a business, pro-business site. Quite frankly, caring for our neighbors in need is the best way to ensure our community thrives. Showing our community that we value health, education, and financial stability of our vulnerable populations as the foundational cornerstone of economic development, business success, and employee retention. Cultivating, nurturing, and caring for our citizens is the best way to ensure that our community thrives. These are heartbreaking times as we watch infection, death, and unemployment rates rise. However, these are also heartwarming times with stories of recovery and assistance for those in dire need. You can be a hero. Let's turn this outbreak into an outcry to care for ourselves, to care for our neighbors in need, and to care for our community. You can be a community hero by donating to our York County COVID-19 fund. Thank you, and take care to everyone.
Thank you all. Be well.
Thank you so much. And again, we appreciate you taking some time to share this information with everyone this morning. This is a great fund. Please consider supporting the COVID-19 Response Fund, and especially this Friday during Give Local York, so you can take advantage of the matching funds, where all of this will go to help support all of our neighbors in need. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Anne. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. Take care, be safe, have a great afternoon.
Thank you.